So we've seen the unofficial Native American policies that came into play where white settlers really advocated for violence. This was led through example by the United States military in attacks such as the Battle of Little Bighorn, the Sand Creek Massacre, and Wounded Knee. If you read the article about the Sand Creek Massacre, you heard about this guy, Colonel John Chivington. It's towards the end of the Civil War, 1864, in Colorado Territory. He has about 700 soldiers in the U.S. Army, and without warning, without any orders from superior officers, he leads his men on a brutal attack on a Cheyenne village in Colorado Territory of about 400 people. And he brutally kills men, women, and children. Why he targets children is his belief that nits make lice. We're going to pick that apart and figure out really in depth what he means by that and what his beliefs are. At the time, a lot of people thought that you either had to kill all the Indians or assimilate them into white civilization through education. So we're going to take a big look at that. Now remember, assimilation is really when one society becomes part of another more dominant society by adopting its culture. Sometimes it's through force, sometimes it's because they want to be part of that society. Our assimilation in America, how Native Americans were assimilated, was largely through forced schooling. The most famous example of this comes from the Carlisle School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. In 1879, there's this guy, Army Captain Richard H. Pratt. And he had this idea that he was going to Americanize Indians. He was going to get the center, and he was going to teach them how to be like proper white settlers, and he was going to teach them how to not be like the savage natives that he thought they were. He becomes really effective at this because he uses great marketing tactics. This is a picture of the school. Carlisle is about halfway between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. I do believe it's a museum nowadays. It kind of looks like an old rundown motel. You could go there and visit the Carlisle School. There's not really much else that's going on in this town. This is a picture of the kids that he would take into his school. Now, he'd try to get them as young as 5, and literally federal agents would go to Native American reservations, and they would forcefully remove children as young as the age of 5 from their parents. And they would come in looking like this, and he would turn them into something like this. So same group of people, he would Americanize them or assimilate them, make them look like they were proper white civilized kids. So this is them in a classroom, learning how to be civilized, as he said. Now, he used effective marketing tactics because pictures like this he put out in the press. He would do before and after pictures to let the American public know what exactly is going on. And mostly they saw these pictures and supported him. They'd see kids are coming in like this, and they're leaving looking like this. And kind of this Indian problem that most Easterners thought we had as we were moving west, the idea of manifest destiny, this land should be ours anyway. God wants us to have it because we are Christian and democratic, and we're going to spread the moral dignity and salvation of man to everyone. It looks, in essence, through these pictures like we're doing that. So the American public starts to really like this idea. So let's go more into the propaganda. Same woman on the left and on the right. You could read the caption to see that this is her wedding day on the right, and you could see it's a nice white Christian wedding. Richard H. Pratt would have loved this because he really sized up this photograph to make it happen and printed them side by side so the American public could see these before and after shots. There's other Native American boarding schools to assimilate people. It's not just in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, although that is the most famous one. They're all across the country. So literally, federal agents are going onto reservations everywhere. They're in essence kidnapping these children, and they're taking them and they're shipping them off to schools where they're never going to see their parents ever again. And these are pamphlets, pieces of propaganda that were used to get the public on the side of the United States government. The government would print these and say, oh, look, these boarding schools are great because these Native Americans that we think are horrible people, we're going to teach the women how to do laundry, how to tailor, how to cook pastries, how to sew. And you could already see kind of the stereotypical gender roles that they're falling into, aside from the assimilation of one society into another. Let's look at on the left, you see, oh, women will do this, and on the right, men will do this. They'll learn how to be blacksmiths and wagon makers and do all these jobs that white settlers do, which wasn't really part of the Native American way of life. So just to go through a couple pictures, you could see kids at these schools, the American way, trying to be like white settlers wanted them to be. This is one of the most famous pictures, Tom Torlino. He was a Navajo student. On the left, it's him when he was taken into the school, and then he graduated 3 years later. This is him on the right. Very effective propaganda. In addition to assimilation schools, the other major piece of legislation that the U.S. government officially supported was the Dawes Act. So there's a couple of them, but the first one is passed in 1887 under Grover Cleveland's administration. He's the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, so he actually counts as president number 22 and number 24 because he served 2 different terms. Benjamin Harrison was in between, so although he's one person, he counts as 2 different presidents. I don't know. 1887 is the year Congress passes this. He signs it into law officially through an extra executive order. And what this aims to do is destroy the Native Americans' way of life. I kid you not, the assimilation schools were just to destroy their way of life. They were only allowed to speak English. They were only allowed to dress in certain clothes. The idea is that you destroy their culture through education. Their culture will not exist if they're not allowed to speak their language, if they're not allowed to have long hair and braids. If all their customs are killed off, then the person will still exist as a physical entity, but their way of life is dead. And the idea is that the American government can shape them into something that they want to be, that they see as less threatening. So the next step in doing this beyond education is the Dawes Act. So we had all these reservations that we made Native Americans go to, and several times you saw under Andrew Johnson, the Trail of Tears, Cherokees were forced to go all through Georgia, and they were forced onto reservations in Oklahoma, but then white settlers wanted Oklahoma, so they were forced to move again, and they're given reservations, and there are treaties, like the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1861, that this land will be yours always and forever. Oh wait, we found gold, we need to push you off the land again, move to a different reservation. Now that you're on the reservations, here's the U.S. government's official policy to destroy your life even more. So you used to be nomadic, you used to follow buffalo, you used to roam, you used to hunt and gather. But now we're going to make you do things like white settlers do and become farmers. So this land that you have now on reservations, it might be the 3rd reservation that you were forced onto. We're going to divide this up into plots of land, and we're going to give each person, as the head of household, a plot of land. Kind of the same thing that you were eligible for under the Homestead Act. So we'll give you some land, but you have to farm it. Oh, in addition, even though a reservation is supposed to be kind of its own separate sovereign nation, you are now going to be subject to all the laws of the United States, both federal, state, and local. But you are not citizens, so you cannot vote. But you still have to follow our laws, but you have no say in our government. So what this does is it destroys the Native Americans' idea of shared land. So being very in touch with land and nature, Mother Nature and animals and everything like that, it's destroyed because now you are the head of household, you have a plot of land, farm it. This is how you'll survive. This is how you'll get food. It's no longer communal ownership of the land. So one Native American, he was offended by having this farming forced upon him, and we see this quote on the bottom of the page. You asked me to cut grass and make hay and sell it, and be rich like the white man, but how dare I cut off my mother's hair? So it's just different ways of believing that maybe a lot of Native Americans didn't believe in ownership of land. That's really a white settler's idea, and that's now being forced upon them through assimilation, through these forced laws, the Dawes Act. And just to end with a political cartoon showing the division of their land from reservation, it's now being chopped down and put in smaller sections and trying to destroy the way of life, because as we saw in the last screencast, Easterners were very concerned with how they would deal with this thing they called the Indian problem.